Joel says he's running a few minutes behind. It was at 6:25. He said he was cutting it close.
Okay. Okay, I can do that.
All right, well, we don't need them quite
Oh, we
yet.
got the lapel like out for Gary?
I did.
I know, I feel like a rock star. I feel like a TV star. This was my first interview with Jay Leno.
Deb, aren't you sitting up here?
Gary needs help tonight. Someone needs to help him out.
Okay.
The original plan was for all three of us to take care, but he's not feeling as well as he should.
Again?
Again.
Lord.
I know. These young ones, they need vitamin C or something.
I got, it's some sort of upper respiratory thing, like nothing else is, brain fog, exhaustion. Yesterday we came back from vacation a day early and I just basically.
Long COVID.
I slept the majority of the day. I tested myself for COVID, I don't have it again.
I'm gonna start the recording.
Okay.
You know, you still do that.
I had a bunch of those free tests.
We're looking at his screen, so it's connected to his computer now, line, so you won't be able to see
Okay.
the agenda up tonight.
Ready?
You're free to go?
All right, we'll call the meeting to order. Roll call. Everybody is present except for Joel. And I hear he'll be in shortly, but we do have a quorum. Any public comments?
Yes.
We have a public comment.
We do.
Put it on the record.
Please state your
I can
name and
bring
your
that up.
address and
Not quite.
say what you got to say.
Go ahead. Hi, I'm John Pullman, and I'm on the board of Oak Grove Crossing Neighborhood Association. And I'm the guy who gets the calls when people have a problem. And this, we have a dead-end street on Hollyhock. And I've got pictures if someone wants to see it. But what it is they drive to the end of the street and then go through the end and onto a farmer's field, and they drive around the edge of the subdivision and go onto the old Lonesome, which was the trail over to Oak Grove Road. And it happens enough that it bothers the people who live out there. What the problem is, how do I stop them from doing that? And I have a picture. They have one that was on down by the fire station where they have that bridge where they have three signs up there. Or do I just put a no trespassing sign, put a chain across the end? I don't know. But as I went down, I talked to Rob, and he said, if you look at the curb height right there, they're just going to drive right around the sign or whatever I put out there. And after looking at it, he's probably right. But I didn't know. I'm up for ideas, is what I'm here for, just to see what can I do, or ask the city to do to control that traffic.
So are they going down the end of Lilac Lane and turning right on Hollyhock and then and entering the field there?
Left, so they go left on Hollyhock.
Okay.
They cross Cherry Lane and they go north along the property border.
All the way and then connect, so they're not actually ever connecting to the old Lonesome Road path. They're connecting just straight across the field?
Well, I think they are going down. They go down a ways to where the old Lonesome was. I haven't tracked them all the way down where they're coming in, but I can show you where they're getting on the Hollyhock
Yeah.
and starting down that edge of the farmer's field.
So, but there's no crops on the field?
There are crops there,
Yeah.
but they're riding kind of on the edge where it's not planted.
And they're doing this at night
I
to get out of, driving?
People have seen them, so I'm not sure. I think they're making their way over to Lawrence down there and maybe the tavern. I'm not sure what's going on down that way.
House of Lords, yeah.
But I don't know.
So does anybody, has anybody, like, talked to somebody who's doing this? Like,
I think
seen
I
them
have.
doing it? Oh, okay,
I think I have.
okay.
But I'm not really sure. They all claim it's a black pickup truck, and that's one of them. But there's a lot of them out there.
So,
But it's still going
zoom in
on.
that far north left corner there. And so you can see House of Lawrence is basically right across the field. But so Lonesome, so this is the old Lonesome path,
Yes,
right?
right.
When I first moved into the neighborhood, you could still kind of go down that path, but I think it's way overgrown now. I don't think you can get all the way up. But you're saying that they're going this way.
That's correct. And then,
And are they coming back this way?
yes.
And
And
there's still no houses out there?
It's starting to be built.
Okay.
You've got these two original that were there. There's a house here now. There's a house there now. They're building one.
On the radius there.
Yeah.
Right, a brand new one there. So
Actually, having houses there will help.
Yes.
perhaps as it builds up, it'll be more and more, people will talk about it a little more when a guy does that, but,
How often does this happen?
pardon me?
How often?
How often? I'm not sure.
I would know, I'm on the other side of the subdivision, I didn't notice.
Yeah, they've got a nice path worn there. I've seen the tracks for both in the winter and the snow. I've seen it in the mud in the spring. It's pretty consistent.
Large rocks or
I'm sorry?
large rocks?
I'm sorry, couldn't hear you.
I'm sorry, large rocks.
Well, he doesn't seem to be troubled with it. So,
Wow.
I don't know. So, I don't know where to go with it. But if, I did mention it to the police over here, and they said, well, we'll watch out for it. But you have to catch them at the time,
Sure, of course.
you know?
I think ultimately, it would be incumbent on that property owner of that property to put up some barrier to prevent them from coming onto his farmland. Outside of that, if they're driving across the individual parcels, then each of those property owners could have some say in this. But from the city's perspective, I think the only thing we could do is put, like the signs maybe that you suggested, stating that the road's, it's the end of the road. But beyond that, if they wanted to go over the curb, I'm not certain there's anything the city can do as a preventative measure other than to catch them when they're doing it.
Right.
And this is, when the gentleman came into Public Works, we talked through some stuff, and I had told him that in a former municipality, I had to go through the same thing. And these dead ends in unfinished subdivisions, they're exiting the roadway and driving onto an unpaved surface through grass and ruts and all that. So if we put some signs at the end of the street, it's just gonna mean they're gonna find a different way to get off the street.
Right, it sounds like they're intending on
Correct.
driving on this property, and who knows if they even have permission to be on that property, but in the end of the day, I'm not sure there's much the city can do unless there's a complainant, he's on the property when the police are there. I don't know what else we could do.
Yeah.
Be interesting to know how often it's happening. There's a new resident right there on that corner there that, on the inner corner that maybe
Right.
might help with this situation, but Yeah, I don't know.
Does the HOA have a way of communicating with the residents?
Oh, yeah, I knock on doors.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay,
Or they mail us.
Yeah.
yeah,
Or, yeah.
okay.
yeah.
I'm,
We have a meeting once a year
you have a meeting once a year? Okay.
or so.
Because, I mean, it, might be nice to just,
Well, there
Be
is an
mindful.
HOA Facebook group, so,
oh, okay.
you know, I imagine.
There was, no longer.
Oh, is it no longer there?
No.
It was there just a
It
week
was,
ago.
it goes under a different name, but it's not directly,
It's not,
Yeah.
there's you're right, it's not part of the
It's a spin-off,
association.
yeah.
It's part of the neighborhood, I
Yeah.
should say that, right?
Okay.
But the neighborhood is de facto the association,
Yeah.
so, but it's not the official association's
Right, exactly.
group.
I would say put a trail cam up
Yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah.
too.
right
might
by
be-
where they'll come on and off, because you can get a license plate then, hopefully.
well, that would,
And
That
then you
would
can
make sense,
post a
yeah.
picture on Facebook. Well, I don't know that there's much the police
Yeah,
can
I think
do.
that, you know,
I mean, what's
the
the
best
code
solution
violation?
would be, when it's happening, someone call the police,
right. That's,
you know? And ideally, it's happening when there's not something else going on, they can come out, investigate it, and find the,
Trail him down, follow
yes,
him down
right,
there?
Right.
Well,
Yeah, but except it's quickly not in Harvard. So I don't know that there's much that they can do once they leave the city limits.
But part of the city limits is on Oak Grove Road.
Mm-hmm.
At that part?
Yep.
No, but there's an
Okay.
area that is
Okay.
within city limits, so.
They do have intergovernment agreements with McHenry County as well to go into that area sometimes.
So,
well, all right.
Wow. Well, this is a new
I
one.
appreciate you hearing my problems, and if anyone thinks of anything that might be,
I'm not close enough to that to see it, so I've never
Yeah.
known any of that's been happening.
Yeah.
Did you know about any of that?
No, that's what I said.
You have
well-
a black truck, don't you, John?
I do have a black truck.
Oh, the truth comes out.
Busted.
It's four-wheel drive too, so I guess I could try it sometime.
Yeah, just
Thank
to
you so
see-
much.
Thank you,
see
John.
that- yep.
I mean, in high school, I took that road a few times.
Okay, moving on, approval of the minutes from June 10th. I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of June 10th.
Second it.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved.
I do have one quick question, because the city council, the one thing I noticed was line number 9, when it was sent out at 8 AM on Thursday, that was not there. And we never got another email saying it was updated. So I would say if this does get updated, because it gets close, to actually send us another email, because, so we don't have people saying we're violating the Open Meetings Act rule, that we add this after the 48 hours, because of the holiday on the 4th of July. Because that's why we had to put it on Thursday.
Okay.
I actually didn't know number 9 until I opened this up to get ready tonight, and I'm like, oh, we have another item on this.
Good point.
Discussion action on J. Nolan Honorary Way Street sign. Whose is this?
You hear me?
Can hear you.
So we received a request from the Nolan family to meet with them. They wanted to do some kind of a memorial for Jay and something to do with the city and maybe the projects that he worked on
I
when
don't
he
think
was
it's going to transfer
mayor.
over to the,
Some of the
YouTube.
ideas they have are still in the works, but in the meantime, they asked if we could do something on Air Street, and one of the things we could do pretty quickly is to do the honorary way. If you recall, there was an ordinance established a few months ago that we would do this based on council approval for a 3-year period. And so the family requested that you consider J. Nolan Memorial Way sign to be placed on Air Street based on that ordinance. And it would look similar to the Garza sign that is in the packet, with the idea that we would probably like to put it on Air and Brainerd, as that's a central location to the downtown coming either way. So that is the ask.
So this will just be our second honorary?
This will
Sign?
be our third. We have.
Fourth.
Fourth, right. We have
Mower.
Garza, Lori's, which
Oh, yeah.
isn't installed yet. Mark Hague, which is actually not on a public way. It's going to be in the parking lot of Public Works, correct?
Oh,
So
okay.
it'd be our third public, on a
Okay.
public street.
And where's Lori's going?
Lori's is going to go out here in front of City Hall on
Okay.
Eastman there.
Okay. It would be most appropriate to be in front of the post office.
Well, I think the Nolan family requested Air Street because Mayor Nolan was instrumental in the streetscape being redone on Air Street.
And where exactly does he want, or do they want it? Would it go on like a street light, or would it go on some pole, or where would it go? No. John? What?
There. Wait, I got it.
Gotcha.
We got it now. Generally speaking, these kind of honorary street signs go atop of the existing street sign, so like up at 5 Points, we'd have to take a look, but, where there would be an Air, it would be on top of that or alongside of it, just as a tribute. Yes.
Thank you. It would be on top of the actual street signs.
All motion to accept the ask. It's based on the previous ordinance we established for this, right?
I'll second. Send it to the city council.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Roll call, Mo, or Mayor? All's in favor?
Yeah,
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
you're not spending money on it.
Motion passed. Got it. Motion passes. All right. Let's go on to the road project update.
So in your project, or in your packet, you have a color-coded project schedule of all the major roadway jobs going on in the city. Not much has changed from last time I was here when I presented this, except for a couple of projects that have moved back a quarter. For instance, Moringa Road rehabilitation, on the first line, you can see that gray bar that's underneath, that's what was shown last time. We still don't have agreements approved by IDOT, so we should have been starting in third quarter, which is now, so that's getting pushed back. That'll actually now align with the Moringa Road Bridge project, which they both have to be done together anyways, so there's really no
Gary.
issue there. I just want to point out that construction is shown in, winter right now, and that's not gonna work, so I expect this project to be built in the summer of '27. 173 sidewalks is a CMAQ grant that we applied for. We did get it. So CMAP will be voting on that, I think, in September. So that should be starting phase 2, right at the beginning of '26. 14 sidewalks, if you don't know, it's adding sidewalks on the west side of 14 between 173 and Airport McGuire Road. We just started that, that's on schedule, that's not an issue. Bear Street resurfacing, the pre-con is next week. Digging Sumner is another federal project that we got money for through the council. The way the budget worked out with the council, they did not have money for construction until 2028, so it doesn't really matter where the engineering phase 1 and phase 2 fall. We're not gonna be able to construct anything until 28, so I'm not concerned with that one. And of course, Lions Park is gonna be starting any day now as well. No questions?
Just, we have the money budgeted for construction, Marengo? No? I mean, it's gonna go next year? Next year?
Yeah, it'll be constructed in 27.
And that's a match?
At least an 80-20. Bridge might be 90.
What's not on this list is the Rush Creek to Shadow Creek project. And I know we're still waiting to get an IGA in force, so.
They did send over the IGA. I know Deb was gonna send it in to have it looked over.
So we, Rob and I haven't had a chance to talk yet because he was on vacation. That's actually going to be a new business item on admin. That's it. The IGA and project is in review by our city engineer for cost analysis at this time.
Sure. So that's another project that's not on this list that will eventually get on this list, ideally.
I consider that a county project right
I get it. It kind of is a county project, but they're looking for us to manage it, so it kind of be a pseudo county city
Right.
project, right? So. Okay, thanks.
More questions on that? Nope, thanks. Discussion action, 5-year citywide transportation plan.
Okay, got a lot of information to share with you. I will try to go through it as quickly as possible. Joel, how you doing? I'm Gary Rozadowski, city engineer.
Nice to meet you, Gary.
Nice to meet you. So tonight we're going to discuss where we're at with the citywide rehabilitation study. Back in '22, the city got a grant from CMAP to do a pavement condition analysis of every single road, all 52 miles of city streets in the city. Every segment, and a segment's generally a block. It's not always a block, but it's generally a block. It was assessed and assigned what's called a PCI, a Pavement Condition Index. You're going to hear me talk about PCIs all night long. That's just a rating system of how that segment came out, 1 being the worst, 100 being the best. We got the spreadsheet that we got from that study way back then. It looks like this. There's not all that much information on here. Street, from, to, length, width, and then the PCI values. So that's what the spreadsheet from that study showed us. They then took those ratings and put them into a map, with red being the worst and green being the best. You can see this is not a pretty picture, a lot of red on here. They determined that 87% of city streets were rated poor or worse. If you want to feel a little bit better, you're not alone. ASCE does a Illinois Infrastructure Report Card every other year, and as you can see, all Illinois roads were rated a D minus, or D plus, I'm sorry. I would say that's where your guys are at. So where do we start? What do we do first? I'm an engineer, I need a plan. So first thing I did was I took that spreadsheet I just showed you a second ago, expanded it with a little bit more information, determined the square footage. I inputted all the data that we got from our core report that we did last year. The PCIs has a revised column because if we resurfaced it or did a rejuvenation or something like that, since that study was done, I revised the PCI upwards. We'll talk about all the cost information later on. But There are a lot of segments in the city. This goes on forever. So first thing I did is I came up with some guidelines and goals that we can use to determine what are we going to do. It's a high-level framework that we can use to accomplish what seems like an insurmountable task when you have so many roads that are rated so poorly. We had a meeting with the city department heads. We went over my plan of the guidelines and the goals, made some changes. We finally agreed upon the final guidelines and goals. We determined if a road has a PCI of higher than 85, that means it's in excellent condition and there's no immediate attention needed for that road. If the PCI is between 70 and 85, we're going to do some pavement preservation. We're going to preserve that good pavement. We're going to try to extend its life. We're going to stop deterioration and try to make it last longer before we need to do something with it. Ways to do that are crack sealing, crack routing and sealing, which is just basically cleaning out the cracks, making a channel and putting asphalt in there to seal that crack. And of course, rejuvenation. We've done rejuvenation in 22, 3, and 4, or 22 and 23. Why do we do that? Because in the first 1, 2, 3 years of when a road is paved, that pavement loses a lot of its oils and its resins due to oxidation and UV exposure and traffic wear. And so when you do a pavement rejuvenation, you're putting down another coat, so to speak, that replenishes those resins. It improves durability. It actually seals up any cracks, small cracks that may have formed in those first couple of years. Since it coats the whole surface, it prevents other cracks from starting, and it just is a way to extend pavement life. So a goal of this would, a goal of pavement preservation is after 3 years of when a street is paved, we want to do a pavement rejuvenation. Kind of brings it back to square one. You get multiple years before you have to do something out of it. If we have a pavement that is between 45 and 69, that's a mill and surface type of treatment. Keep in mind, this range is not absolute. I could have a street with a PCI of 50, which means it should be milled and resurfaced, but when we go out and do a detailed look at it, it may have base failure or other issues going on that requires it to be reconstructed. So this is just kind of a range. Same with if I have a road that's 65, that doesn't mean I'm automatically going to go mill and resurface it. If it just has minor cracks and doesn't need to be mill and resurfaced, let's just rejuvenate it again. You can rejuvenate a street more than once. So, why do I keep doing this? Okay, so the first thing we do on a mill and resurface, the first guideline was to assume a 2-inch mill with a 2 1/4-inch resurface. And you may say, well, why are you putting down an extra 1/4 inch? So, what I like to do is when you pave a road, you want that lip of the road to be slightly higher than the curb so that as the water sheet drains off towards the curb, it gets into the curb. A lot of times if you mill off 2 inches and put 2 inches back, as they're rolling, that compresses just a little bit, and instead of going into the curb, it actually goes in between the cracks of the curb. So that's why that's there. We have to verify the existing bituminous and aggregate depths. So typically, a road's got surface course and binder course and aggregate. So this is your bituminous, this is your aggregate. Typical road is maybe 2 inches of surface, 4 inches of bituminous, or 6 inches worth of bituminous. 6 to 12 inches of aggregate, you never know what's underneath there. To mill off, if you have 6 inches of bituminous and you mill 2 inches off, that's fine. You still have 4 inches left for traffic to drive on. The issue is, what if I only have 3 inches of bituminous? As soon as I mill off 2 of those inches and leave that 1 inch, all the traffic that's going to be running over that 1 inch that's left, and especially the construction traffic that's going to be running over that 1 inch that's left, in a week you won't have any pavement left. It's going to crack and break and it's going to be nothing there. So that's what this means is we need to look at the pavement cores and verify, do I have enough existing bituminous to be able to mill? Because in that second example, if there's only 3 inches, I need to take all 3 inches out and then put 3 inches back. I'm going to assume 30% of the curb and gutter on that street is going to be removed or replaced. CBEL does hundreds of road programs every year for multiple municipalities. We have data that is, only a year old, going back decades, and we know that typically on a milling resurfaced street, you replace between 15 to 30% of the curb that's out there. Harvard's curbs have been neglected for a long time, so I'm going with the high side on 30%. I'm going to repair any ADA ramp at the corners. If it's your money, I don't have to do it, but I want to do it. And if it's MFT money, I have to do it. And if it's a milling resurfaced street, no mainline sidewalk repair. Let's just stick to the street. We can do sidewalk repair under sidewalk. And no driver or apron replacement. Again, we're sticking with the street. If the PCI is less than 45, now we need to reconstruct, typically speaking. Reconstruction means we are taking out all of the bituminous, we are taking out all of the aggregate, all the way down to the subbase. Subbase could be lots of things. It could be a little bit of gravel, it could be dirt. There's lots of different types of dirt. There's clay, which has some structural ability to it. There's topsoil, sand, peat. There's all kinds of things that could be underneath that aggregate that we don't really know exactly, even though the Corps would tell us somewhat. So we're going to assume that 25% of that subbase needs to be removed and replaced. It's soft. It's got silt in it. It's just not structurally sound. Typical reconstruction is about 20, so I just went a little bit higher. I'm replacing 100% of the curb and gutter anytime I reconstruct the street. If the street is that bad, more than likely the curb is that bad anyways. It's probably not pitched correctly. It's probably heaved. There's cracks all over it. There's a reason why that street is in the condition that it's in.
Or there's no curb to begin with.
Or there's no curb.
Which also contributes to this issue.
I'm replacing all the driveways. If it's a bituminous driveway, I'm putting bituminous back. Concrete driveway, concrete back. If it's an aggregate driveway, I'm going to make it bituminous. Sidewalk removal and replacement, 100%, unless it's in really good condition. I'm not going to rip something out that's in great condition, but generally speaking, all my estimates include complete sidewalk remove and replace when the road's being reconstructed. ADA ramps, of course. Utility infrastructure replacement. When I say utility structures, I don't mean ComEd, AT&T, and Nicor. I mean your utilities, your valve vaults, your manholes, your catch basins. We will look at them during the design and part of the survey. Is there a crack that can be mortared? Is the cone offset where we can just reconstruct the top half? Is it in that bad a shape where we got to totally replace the entire manhole? You actually have a lot of brick manholes still in the city. So anytime you find one of those are coming out. And storm sewer cleaning and or repair. I'm news to Rob, but I'm going to ask you to televise all the storm sewers anytime we reconstruct the street. If the storm sewer is in good condition, we're going to make cleaning it as part of the bid docs. If it's your money, I can't do that if it's MFT, they won't allow that. But if it's the 1%, we can do that. And if the storm sewer shows any needs for repairs, holes, cracks, offsets, then we'll repair that storm sewer as part of that program as well.
No surprise here, Gary. We're already doing that on Air Street, so.
And then I'm going to consider full depth reclamation for long stretches. Full depth reclamation is a type of reconstruction where you take off some of the bituminous at the top, and then what bituminous is left, along with the aggregate, and even the subbase if it's good material, you take all of that, you break it up, you churn it up, you mix it up together, put it into a bin, a truck, add dry cement, add water, mix it up some more, and actually lay that back down as your base of the road. Think of it as dirty looking concrete. It's really, really strong. It's a great base. It actually cures, so you have to keep it wet. You water it daily for about 5 days, and then it dries really hard. and then you come back and you pay the top 2 or 3 inches. The reason why I say long stretches and if acceptable is this equipment is a train of equipment. There's the thing that turns it up, mixes it up, adds the cement, puts it down, so it's a train of vehicles. So the mobilization is a little bit more costly than typical. So you can't do it like this block and then go over there and do that block. It's got to be a series of blocks together. And the other consideration is there shouldn't be a lot of structures in the pavement, because as this machine is going and churning this up and mixing it up, when it gets to a manhole, it's got to stop, lift up, go past the manhole, drop back down, and continue on. So now you got about a 12-inch gap of material that's dissimilar from everything else. Sure, the contractor could compact it in lifts, and it's a lot of work, and it can be done, but a lot of times, if it's not watched carefully and done properly, you end up with those little dips. So that's why I say if it's an acceptable candidate.
So it just spits it out the back end. Cool.
So this is just, I want to show a quick example of 2 random municipalities. Municipality A kind of took care of their streets. If I had to do a 5-year program for that municipality, I think I would probably do 1 road, reconstruct, 2 mill and resurfaces, do that over a 4-year period. And then the 5th year, I would probably do rejuvenation on all the streets that were just recently paved. Municipality B, if I had the same budget, I would pretty much only be able to do 1 reconstruction. Maybe 1 reconstruction, 1 mill and resurface. So that top municipality, I can get all that done in 5 years, whereas the municipality on the bottom would take me 10 years to do the same thing with the same budget, just because there's so many reconstructions. And if you want a real eye-opener, that is a 20-street sample. You've got 1,200 road segments. So take that chart, multiply it by 60. So let's get into the improvement goals that we came up with. We know we can't improve every street right away. We know we can't even do the worst streets, all of them, right away. So our first improvement goal was to improve 1 north-south and 1 east-west roadway in each quadrant of the city, in the core of the city, where you have the grid system. 1 north-south and 1 east-west roadway in each of the 4 quadrants. This allows residents to have 1 completely completed street that they can drive on in either direction. And then, depending on where they live, they peel off and they get to their house. Future years programs then would work off of those streets and start expanding off of those completed streets and work outward. Second goal was to improve the main access road to the independent subdivisions. And those are the modern, what I call the modern day subdivisions, the ones away from the core of the city, the Oak Groves, the Park Points, the Country Brooks, your typical modern subdivision. If we improve the main access road, that allows every subdivision to have a quality road to get into. However, this kind of goes against traditional subdivision pavement strategies. Because a typical subdivision these days, right, if you've got a main road, it comes in, I don't know, a couple of streets, they have a cul-de-sac, another street like this, something like that. Some more cul-de-sacs because developers have to use exactly every square inch of land they have. So typically you would work outside in. So you would probably pave that, pave these. The next year you would come and maybe pave this. Then the next year, either one of these or maybe part of that, but you're working this way so you're never driving on that pavement that you just paved. What I just said was, hey, let's do this, and then we're going to drive on it with construction traffic. Well, what the hell, Gary? I'm thinking it this way. If I pave the entrance road, everyone that lives in that subdivision is going to have a nice entrance road to drive on. And then when they go and do the other parts of the road, what's going to be driving on that road? A couple of dump trucks when they go and mill the surface and put the bituminous into the truck and it drives away. A fully loaded cement truck is going to come in when they pour the curb. some topsoil trucks, there's construction traffic, but there's not a lot. Compare that to every week there's a garbage truck. Every month there might be a moving van, there's delivery trucks, there's utility trucks. Is there a big difference? So I said it's dependent on the quality of the remaining roads in the subdivision and the status of skip patching. Rod's been doing a good job skip patching the correct way, and by that I mean he does a whole lane or a half lane. He doesn't do a 4-foot wide strip where now you have to drive on that line. He does it the right way. And if the interior roads are better than that entrance road, it makes sense to do that entrance road first, because by the time you get to do all those other ones, it may be 10 years, and you can do a mill and resurface on that entrance road. So there's just a lot of ifs, maybes, and we're going to have to look at that. These are just a few examples, right? We all know what the subdivisions are. Goal 3 is to have some smaller priorities, and by that I mean small sections of major roads that are going to have a larger impact, like Hurley Drive. We know what a wreck that is, but it's a direct connection to Crosby Elementary School. Marengo Road from 173 to Air, that is a section of road that gets a lot of use by your residents. You could pick any street, like Grant Street is by the hospital. You could pick any street by school. So those are what I mean by smaller priorities. And then the last goal after those 3 are to use strictly the PCI data only. So after we get these top priorities done, now we're just going to use the data in the spreadsheet. Worst first, get it done. Take the politics out of it, take the outside forces out of it. We're using data to figure out what roads should be done next. All right, so now let's go back to goal number 1, that we talked about doing 1 north-south and 1 east-west road in each direction of the city. And I mean the core, the grid system, right around here. So in the northwest quadrant, we went with McKinley Avenue and 2nd Street. I actually had 4th Street originally, and at that department head meeting, we discussed a lot of it and we changed it to 2nd Street. In the northeast quadrant, it's McKinley and Lincoln. Southwest quadrant, Washington and Page. And southeast, Dewey and Lincoln. And when I put those on a map, you can see they pretty much are the center line of each quadrant. So they're kind of in the center of. So I thought this was a great plan until I ran some numbers. Year 1, option 1. That plan that I just showed you is going to cost $5.4 million. It's pretty amazing that that small number of street is way over the budget that we have to get things done. Not necessarily. So if you look on this map, 2nd Street, those 3 green blocks, those are in good shape. We would do nothing with those, except maybe rejuvenation. McKinley, red is a reconstruct. McKinley, yellow, could be a mill and resurface, or it could just be another rejuvenation. We were looking into that when we got there. Right now, I'm assuming a mill and resurface. But when I got to $5.4 million, I said, well, this isn't going to work. So I went with option 2, which took away the north end of Lincoln. I'm going to go back and forth here. So that was 1, 2. You can see that red disappearing on the north end of Lincoln. And then if you look at Dewey Street, or
1, number 2.
I like 1 better.
Yeah.
I also took away the very western edge of Washington. So that's option 1. Option 2. And I took
I
away,
wish we had a side by side.
took away Page Street. That's more fun this week. I mean, Alderman. I took away Page Street, so before and after. So looking at this plan, year 1, option 2, $3.9 million. So now we're more in the ballpark. When I circled back with the group that met the first time, the department heads, They were concerned about getting rid of those northern 3 blocks of Lincoln Street. They are in very bad shape. They lead to a school. They thought it was important to put those back. So option 3, which is the option that we are going with, put those 3 blocks of Lincoln back. But of course, with a constrained budget, you have to take it from somewhere. So
No, Dewey.
Dewey is gone, and it went up to Lincoln. However, Church Street is actually in pretty good shape right now. We did a crack seal, we did a rejuvenation, and it's in good shape. That could be our east-west street for that quadrant. And this also comes in at $3.9 million, since we basically just moved 3 streets from one place to another. So this is the option that we ended up with for the year 1 program. Now, my plan is to always add additional streets so the program's over budget. What? You want me over budget on purpose? Yes, I do. Because, especially with a big program, if I have a $4 million program, I put it out to bid, we get good prices, and it comes in at 3.6. Now I have $400,000 I can't use. So let's make that $4 million program a $4.3 million program, or $4.4 million program. If it comes in with good numbers, fantastic, I'm a genius. If it doesn't, that's okay, because I'm gonna put language in the contract special provisions that says the city is allowed to remove streets without penalty. So Mr. Contractor, you know right now, as you're looking at this program and you're about to bid on it, I might take streets away. Now, it's not a big deal to a contractor when it's a $4 million road program. If it's a $250,000 road program, and he was supposed to do 3 streets, and now we're only gonna be doing 2, that may have more of an impact on him, but still, he knows going into it, whether he wants to bid on this or not. So, that's the plan, this plan, is to always go over budget every year,
Hey, Gary,
because we can take streets out.
wouldn't be, contractors like to know what's there. They want to know for sure we're getting this. So wouldn't it be better to, instead of saying I'm going to take streets away, just put alternates on there?
I could do either one. Doesn't matter how we do it.
Okay.
We did an alternate on Lions Park. So it doesn't matter. So this maximizes funding. Speaking of funding, this is the funding scenario I was presented with back in January. Back then, we thought we would do like 2/3 reconstruction, 1/3 resurfacing. I'm not even looking at that anymore for the first 5 years. I'm just looking at that total funding column. I know I have about $3.8 million to work with. Here is the 2 to 5 year program. Oh my God, is that a small chart? Right? Year 1, the chart went on forever. This is 2, 3, 4, and 5 combined, and this is all you're getting. Because that's the funding that we have. So if you guys can find $3.8 million every year, I'd really appreciate it. But
So would we.
so how did I come up with these streets? Well, if you remember number 4, goal number 4 was use the data. So this is that spreadsheet just reconfigured to start with the lowest PCI. So up here, revised PCI, that's your worst street. For those programs, I'm looking at resurfacing more than a reconstruct, because I can't even do a block for $200,000, I don't think, reconstruct. So I'm gonna go pick the first street that is milling resurfaceable, if that's a word. So I just go down here, and eventually, maybe I might get to a street that doesn't need to be reconstructed. One day. So my first 45 street with the PCI of 45 is Front Street. That was just resurfaced in 16. So yeah, the data says you should resurface it now, and maybe I should. But my mind says, if that street just got resurfaced 9 years ago, maybe I should skip that and go to somebody else who's been neglected a little bit more. So next one was 9th Street. That's going to be on the list. Johnson was resurfaced in 16. Bristol Court is just a small little cul-de-sac. I'm not worried about that now. Church Street was resurfaced in 17. It was crack sealed and rejuvenated in 23. It's in good shape. There's Brink. Harvard Hills Road is a monster all of its own. I'm calling that a large-scale improvement because it's such a long street. It's a wide street. It's going to be expensive. And I just keep using the same type of reasoning. Northfield, same way. It's a wide street. It's a long street. It's a major, large-scale improvement. 4th Street was resurfaced in 16. So you just keep going down the list, and those ones in purple are the ones that you saw on this list. So if you notice Brink Street, those sections of Brink Street is actually from 14 to Jefferson. That street is currently right on the cusp of still being able to be saved with the mill and resurface pretty soon before it deteriorates to a reconstruct. So I'm including that in here, and the reason why it's highlighted in blue and says FDR, which is that full depth reclamation, is we just put together with the city a grant to IDOT to improve Brink Street from 14 actually all the way out to Schultz.
Schultz.
It was a 5-agency application, 4 townships in the city. We came together and we put in one application to IDOT.
And no local match if we.
There's no local match if we get it. So if we get that, I mean, I'm not writing letters home about it, but we might get it. Then we can take that money and obviously do a lot of streets for $700,000. So this is our years 2 through 5 program. Construction costs. How do they come up with those construction costs? If I go back to the spreadsheet, you can see over here rehab costs. That is the cost to either resurface or reconstruct the street. I used $50 a square yard for a resurface. I used $121 for a reconstruct. And if you remember, on a reconstruct, besides taking everything out and bringing everything back in, we're doing 100% curb and gutter. We're doing all the sidewalks. We're looking at the storm sewer. So obviously it's going to be a lot more expensive, more than twice of resurfacing. Full depth reclamation comes in a little bit less than a typical reconstruct. We got these numbers from...
Hey, Gary? Sorry to interrupt you, but what if you're doing a street that doesn't have sidewalks? We're not going to put sidewalks in, are we?
I don't know. How's that for an answer? That's a city, I don't know if that's part of I guess it could be. Yeah, I don't know what the answer is.
Because I know we have at least one.
So, I mean, I should probably put that in here.
About McKinley?
That's the one I'm thinking of.
Honestly.
I mean, that could be done as part of this.
Should.
That could be done, well, if it's a reconstructed, then yeah, it's going in. If it's a resurfacing, no. Based on our improvement guidelines and goals, if it's a reconstruct, that sidewalk's not going in as part of that. I'm sorry. If it's a resurface, the sidewalk's not going in. If it's a reconstruct, then yeah, the sidewalk's going in.
McKinley would be a reconstruct. Would include sidewalk.
So these prices we took from CBell's constantly updating their database based on actual bids received from year to year. So I am confident that these are good numbers, and that's where those numbers came from. Note that all the prices in that spreadsheet that will be included in the report are just for resurfacing and reconstruction. If we end up being able to do a full depth reclamation instead of a reconstruct, we're just going to save money. But that spreadsheet doesn't reflect full depth reclamation. It's just surface or reconstruct. Engineering costs, just some general percentages. If it's resurfacing, 6% for engineering, 8% for construction. Full depth or reconstruction is 10% each because you have to get full field survey to do either. Especially reconstruct because we may be adjusting profile. Then we have to deal with the parkways and the driveways and the slopes and everything else. So design engineering is going to include any additional cores that we need. And you're like, well, wait a minute, Gary, we just spent a bunch of money last year taking 96 cores. Yeah, but we have 1,200 segments of streets. So that was a good information to have. We will use it if we ever have a street where that core was on. It was good for the planning,
It was a broad net.
thank you. But if, I have a core over here that says I have 6 inches of bituminous over aggregate, and then I have a core over here that says you have 3 inches of bituminous on dirt, and you actually do have some of those, so don't laugh. And I'm doing the street in the middle, well, I need some cores to figure out where does this cross-section end and this one start. So that type of thing. Also included in design engineering is obtaining what's called an LPC 663. Anytime a contractor takes refuge, spoils, anything to a dump, he has to prove to that dump that this material is not contaminated. And he needs what's called an LPC 663 form. And in order to get that, you need to hire a testing company to actually go and test the soil or the whatever he's putting in that dump to verify it's clean.
Doesn't have to go to a
Special waste dump.
dump.
Because that'd be 2.5 to 3 times as expensive. Construction engineering includes QA material costs. So the city has moved to a position where we need engineers on site, making sure this contractor is building to spec. We also need an engineer on site to make those decisions about what parts to undercut, what parts to patch, all those questions that come up. But more importantly, a sub-consultant will be hired, a geotechnical firm that will do the inspection and the density checks and making sure that the material the contractor is using not only meets spec, that he's installing it.
How often does it not get installed correctly when there is an
You know what?
observation?
It depends on the contractor, right? You've got really quality contractors out there that will do a quality job whether you're watching or not. And then you've got the other guys that just don't care. You're not there.
Problem is we're a little bitter.
Well, it's-
All these
yeah,
properties are a
yes,
little bitter,
yes,
so-
well, that's the issue, right?
That's-
Because you're trying to save taxpayers' money by taking the low bidder, but then the low bidder does poor quality, so you need to have someone to hold them to task, right?
And this is not to speak against anything for the Ayer Street reconstruction project from Park to Washington, but during those instances, there was need for base stabilization to remove poor soils and to do that. And I had to be up there to catch them during proof rolls and say, nope, all this has to be removed. You have to make improvements here. You know, fortunately, that was part of the bid, but you need somebody on site to make those calls.
You know, when it comes to like patching, after you mill the bituminous off, you can look at that pavement and say, oh, there's a soft spot, that needs to be a patch, that needs to be a patch. If I asked 10 different people to go out there and mark out patching, I would probably get 10 different spots to be patched. They're not gonna be exactly the same. So it's good to let the city decide, because it's gonna be their road rather than contractor or anyone else. And then I just wanted to point out, obviously, these percentages will be lower when the job is big and higher when the job is small. So if you think of that funding chart. Okay, so I'm just going to wrap this up. The citywide pavement core report, it was used in the planning. It will be used during design if that core falls on the street that we're doing. But of course, we may need more. It would be included in the design costs, though. I would like to see the patching program continue. I just don't know how you're going to fund it. It doesn't have to be done every year, but you know, you have so many streets at the bottom of that list that are going to need to be continually patched to keep them drivable. Luckily, I don't have to come up with the funding. Rejuvenation after 3 years, that is definitely a goal. That's got to be done. It is proven that extends pavement life tremendously.
Important thing I'll add, Gary, too, is for the committee, is that right now, rejuvenation funding cannot be MFT. So in years where we're reliant on only MFT, we need to come up with alternate revenue for rejuvenation because IDOT sees rejuvenation still as an experimental thing.
Talk to our state reps, get that changed.
They have to go through testing processes. It's in the works, but it takes so long for them to just sort of put proof to paper that we're kind of just waiting on that time frame.
So obviously, we need more revenue sources, right? I'm not gonna beat this to death, but things like traffic impact fee ordinances. When developers come into town, it's a formula that says, based on the number of cars you're adding because of your business, times this formula, you are going to give the city this amount of money. Policies like anytime a parcel is redeveloped, that's, pick a number, 10 acres or more, 20 acres or more, you need to improve the streets that are along your frontage. If they're already in good shape, then it's fee in lieu of. Now, I know there's all kinds of arguments, that's gonna chase developers away, but you need more sources, you need more money. So the end goal here is to take a street on the left that is full of potholes, full of block cracking, no curb and gutter, standing water, and turn it into one that's on the right. So that's what we want to accomplish and see over and over and over again in the next forever. So for me, my next step is to memorialize this plan into a written transportation plan, including all the data and all the spreadsheets. So now we have, besides the 5-year program, we have a framework of how to do the next 5-year program. So unless there are any questions, I'm done. Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Where's this in town?
No, the one on the right is in town.
I know.
It's definitely not.
They wouldn't have missed this one.
Yeah. The other one
The other one
could be
could be
anywhere.
anywhere.
On, there we go. The left one's a good representation of a few streets in town where, can you hear me? There we go. The ditch and culvert hasn't been maintained over the years, so now the lowest spot is the right of way. And we end up with, the edge of the road fails, the water stands there, more and more time goes on, and it just keeps failing because the water sits there, gets into the base, it ruins the base, and, we're in a bad spot.
Well, on that note, Gary, in those areas where we don't have stormwater and it is a ditch line, and residents have filled in those ditch lines, the ditch lines are in the city's right of way. Can't the city come back and put the ditch lines
You
back?
could, but I would reconstruct, obviously that road's gonna need reconstruction most likely.
Yes.
So we're gonna change the profile and put curb and gutter in a storm sewer.
But if that's
Yes,
not gonna
but
happen
that's
for 10 years.
For some of those
or
streets, we're
20,
yeah, perhaps 20 years in the future.
Okay, so your question is, can you put the ditch line back? Sure you can.
Would it be advisable to do so?
Besides the ditch line, you have to put culverts in under the driveways.
Yes.
So now you have culverts to pay for, and you have driveway replacement to pay for. And
That's the expensive part
it's
because
gotta go somewhere. That water's gotta go somewhere, so.
you have to start on the low end of the city and work your way to the high end. Area like the southern portion of Lincoln Street.
Yeah,
Where
Lincoln and Hart Street.
Yep.
And
Yeah. down there.
And in those areas, we have to start even further away because I've reached out to the railroad because we're all of Garfield, so there's a main sewer tile that comes down Garfield that has a bunch of streets that bump into it. Once it terminates in Union Pacific right-of-way, where the right-of-way is taller than the invert from the storm sewer. So it actually has to overcome, silt and sediment in order to get down to the creek. But that's not our way to clean.
all we can do is all we can do with what we have. So what we're doing now is better than what we were doing before.
We wouldn't have even been talking about reconstruction before
No, no, absolutely. We had no, reconstruction was not even on the discussion because at 250K a year, you couldn't even construct a full block for that kind of money, so.
Can I ask where we're at on the bond?
I was just going to recommend that this body vote to recommend this to City Council for approval of the 5-year plan so I can get started with bond council on working on that, which would be a 3-step process. We should probably start by August. But we'll need that plan solidified with approval so that we can move forward with that.
Okay, so what do you want now?
Approving of this 5-year plan.
Motion to send this to council to
Recommend
approve.
approval of the 5-year citywide transportation plan as presented by Gary tonight. Make that motion.
Option 3.
Option 3.
I'll second. Got a motion, got a second. All's in roll call?
Well, any other comments or questions?
Nah.
Then you should take roll call.
Joel?
Yeah.
Matthew?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
John? Yes. All ayes, motion passes. Okay, moving on to discussion action on Eyre Street overage items. Last time we had discussed what to do with the extra money we had from Eyre. My wife corrects me at that all the time, too. Rob?
All right, so I tried to lay it out as best I could on the memo. So we have roughly about $284,000 after what was left. So we had 700,000, bids came in at 391. We're trying to hold back about 25,000 just in case there's overages. And with that, that leaves about 284,000. I did get initial prices on the redoing of the pavers and the diamonds. Prices for that was about 15,000 to do all 3. And that is removing the pavers, replacing the base sand, and then locking everything with polymeric sand to get it back up to where it was. I think that this is a good, cost-effective way to accomplish this. You know, the pavers have been in there since 2008-ish, 2005-ish, so they've lasted this long with some settling. I think if we go through and do this again, we should be able to get quite a bit of time out of the next round. That said, that leaves about 267,000 for another project. Now, some ideas got tossed around with skip patching, mill and resurface. I honestly think that the skip patching is great, but the skip patching really only takes care of the failed sections. And in some areas, we have so many failed sections, it's hard to determine where to stop. So what we're missing on this is a lot of the streets that might not need a skip patch, but the surface is failing somewhat similar to Eyre Street. Now, I looked at a few streets, and one of the things that, or a few neighborhoods and streets, and one of the things that really stood out to me is that, you know, we have a few underserved areas, one of them being sort of the southwest corner of the city. So we have Country Brook, we have Shadow Creek over there. I kind of ran some numbers based upon some of Gary's numbers for mill and resurface. And, you know, we have Timber Drive, which is from, you know, Shadow Drive all the way down to Casey Lane, that serves a few multiple family situations. It's some dense population down there, and it's a thorough street where it has alligator cracking, it has some block cracking. It's not blown out, but one of the things that it does have is the surface is in poor shape. The PCI score isn't great. It's about a 27, 28, 30. So it's on the very low edge of what IMS says is acceptable for like a mill and resurface. I think this would be a great opportunity to do a street like that, because if we did Timber Drive from, you know, Shadow Drive to end, or however long we could get, you know, we'd have to go out to bid for this. If unit prices come in low and we don't need to do a lot of curb and gutter, there is a potential that we could get the whole thing done. We would be a little short if it is true to the $50 per square yard. But this would provide this whole neighborhood with a through street that they could take from almost the entrance to the subdivision all the way back to the back of the subdivision and be able to cut off in a few spots.
Of those subdivisions, which is the oldest subdivision? Isn't that Shadow Creek?
Shadow Creek is one of the older subdivisions out there. So, and then also too with, eventual, we're talking down the way with the rec path, but, that is going to tie into Shadow Creek.
Right.
So, and I really do see, Shadow Creek in that area, the other thing that it has going for it is there's not a whole lot of infill lots left. Whereas if we pick an Oak Grove crossing,
Yeah.
there's a ton of infill lots left that are still subject to construction traffic. Or any Turtle Crossing Street right now is subject to a bunch of construction traffic from infill. Autumn Glen, any of those. So this is, this one and Park Point are really the two subdivisions that stand out to me as something that would be good for mill and overlay. But in Park Point, I've already invested significant skip patching, and I'll do more significant skip patching this year to help improve those areas. The other thing that, Timber Drive has is, as Gary said, we get towards the edge of this road, and one of the things that a lot of the city streets have a problem with is water getting to the gutter. And I think if we mill and resurface Timber Drive, this gives a better chance of that water getting to the gutter and that we don't have base filler. Our cores in that area say that we have roughly 4 inches of bituminous and 8 inches of base course. So we're not terrible, assuming that everything's the same. But, so that was one of the areas I wanted to throw out there. And the other one I kind of talked about was Galvin Parkway. But just because we've spent funding, sorry, I feel like I'm holding this weird, but it's the only way it doesn't cut out. Because we've spent some funding on there to improve that, I feel like the underserved, the Country Brook and Shadow Creek would benefit from some sort of a plan. In this case, the road is on the edge of needing reconstruct, but similar to Air Street, if we grab it now and try to protect that base layer and the base course, that gives everybody a nice road to drive on and buys us some time in that subdivision.
Quick question. We were told every year we set aside for brick work, correct?
Mhm.
Where's that money right now?
So the money that we set aside for brickwork is to reset the ribbon pavers that go through, like in front of, like this year, I was gonna focus on the corner over by the hub, because that's in pretty poor shape, and there's the hub, there is, Town and Country, there's the bakery, a few businesses that are really used in that corner. So, I've talked to Harvard Nursery, we haven't expended the money yet. We've got $10,000 there, but that plan is still moving forward to reset those because I feel like that is needed in that area.
Okay, so we shouldn't be using some of that for the 17,000 for the repairs of the bricks?
No, because that addresses the sidewalk problems, not the street problems.
Okay. I was just making sure, I didn't know if it was the whole brick of streetscape of Air Street. Another quick question I had was, like I said, I was on the phone for the last meeting, unfortunately, because I was at work. But I did watch the video afterwards, the following day. And someone mentioned about getting numbers for the multiple options we talked about. So what's the numbers for the whole alleyways?
The alleyways we didn't consider because of what would be required to redo the alleyways. Like as far as like, we don't know what the base is, we don't know, they would need engineering.
Okay, so is it more because of the base or is it more because of the utilities, the sewer?
Well, there's a
water?
whole bunch we don't know back there.
Okay.
And in order to be able to expend this money, this funding within like a reasonable amount of time, there'd be too much work to go through to get the alleys to the point where we could mill and resurface. Or, reconstruct really, because the alleys are not in a condition to mill and resurface.
John,
Yes, sir.
what's your pleasure?
I actually like Rob's plan, just mostly from the standpoint of, as I kind of pointed out last week, you weren't here, but I kind of went through our streets and went through the coring and went through where we have base, right, where we have good base, where we have crushed aggregate base, and all the new subdivisions basically have crushed aggregate base. And so even though the streets are in, less than 45 condition, they have good base.
Yeah.
And so if we can peel off the surface or peel off a little more than the surface, I don't know how thick are we talking?
On those areas, I would do a 2, 2.25.
Okay.
Something that's a little bit more substantial than a microsurface.
And then, and then we can, hopefully maybe do a little patching in there if we have to, and hopefully with, better construction maybe this time around, we can save those streets, or some of them.
Yeah.
So I think maybe if we did that with this money, it might be a good, quote-unquote pilot for the rest of, not saying that the interior of the city doesn't need help, but the subdivisions,
We need to stop them from running away.
we need to stop them from needing reconstructs, basically.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that'd be mine.
Joel?
I agree.
I didn't know if you had anything else. I just want to make sure everyone, because this is a big
Yeah.
decision.
He
That's why.
concurs.
So,
It is.
No,
a big mess.
and I know it was talked about last time that, we're single, we're only gonna make some residents happy. Whatever we do, we're only gonna make some of the residents happy. So, but we have a plan moving forward, and, I think this would be a good way to go, to
Agreed.
start with. It's engineering, baby.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we move forward with Rob's suggestion for the use of the excess Air Street funds to do a mill and, is it mill and resurface?
It would be a mill and resurface
In
on,
Shadow
Timber.
Creek on Timber Drive, and set aside $17,000 for the new brickwork on Air Street.
I'll second. Got a motion, got a second. Any more discussion? All right. Joel Kriete,
Yes.
Ed Perkins,
yes.
Lisa Haderlein,
Yes.
I vote yes. All ayes, motion carries. Item number 9, discussion, recommendation for adjusting the surf internet connection work hours, contractor work hours from 6 PM to 7 PM. What?
Yeah, look and extend their hours of work. 'cause
Oh,
there's-
extend.
There's later daylight,
Okay.
because when they were originally set at 6, it was winter time, but now the sun's up till 9, so
Gotcha.
they're hoping to be able to work longer.
Well, when it was wintertime, it was 5.
Yeah.
And then we extended it to 6,
6 about March or April.
right? Because, you start to get to 7, and, it's not work time. I mean, for people living in neighborhoods, having work crews in their right-of-way until 7.
Are they working weekends? Saturday, Sunday?
I think they are.
I think they're working Saturdays for sure.
Work Saturdays.
Saturdays. The one thing I have a problem with this is because they've already done past 6 o'clock. Last city council for June, which is I did text Deb about this, is because, and I also saw people mentioning on the 401 even being later, but when I was coming down Ringham Road, when they had that road, going down there, getting close to my subdivision, it was almost 7 o'clock and they were still in there. They weren't like cleaning up. I remember when we had till 6 or 5, asking, when Lou was here, he even said they had to be out in their vehicles by then, leaving, not picking up at that time. And this is a little bit more, sorry, I'm gonna be long-winded on this, because they're in my subdivision now. I've actually watched them, they went past my house. Luckily, no gas line was hit. I watched it as much as I could at work yesterday on my Ring camera, burrowing underneath there and then doing the little thing. Seen the guy, nope, go a little bit lower when they were going through underneath the sewer line, which was good. I was waiting for that. But going back with that, Moringa Road, there was people mentioning on the 401, and I know there's someone that worked for the city mentioning, driving by, no, it was fine. No, I take Moringa Road a lot because it goes to my subdivision and get into town. You did have to weave in and out of traffic, and there was no flaggers there, nothing like that. And luckily, nothing major happened, but they were taking up both sides of the roads with no flaggers, and any other construction crew, you have to have flaggers for that reason. Even in my subdivision yesterday, they took up both sides of the road, and my road, Prairie, is one of the major roads that people drive. It's either Country Brook, of course, going south, or going east into my subdivision, and they're blocking both things, so vehicles can't go in there, and there's no flaggers either. So that's, going with this part, that needs, and I know they're almost done with this project, but that needs to be addressed. That needs to be enforced more. And then I think 6 o'clock is late enough for them, for what they're doing.
And the days are starting to get shorter.
Correct. After June 22nd.
Just for information, I did contact Aaron from Surf and asked him if he'd like to attend tonight, and he said no, but I did ask him, update for the project. He assumes that everything will be wrapped up with major construction by the end of July, with the first few weeks of August being used for right-of-way restoration, landscaping, and other final punch list items.
Well, so, end of July, we're not even gonna vote on this until, even if we go forward this till city council, which is the 24th, so what's the point here?
And they've been already going past it,
So currently they have to
Without
stop at
enforcement.
6. Yeah.
but they've been numerous times going past it.
So it means being made clear to them is that right now they stop at 6.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what we'll do.
But there has to be some form of enforcement of it, because it's been a problem since they started.
Yeah.
If no one's watching or complaining, they're gonna work. It's been discussed extensively.
Kind of like watching construction.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
kinda
like everything, no oversight, whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen.
And, yeah, the QA pretty much, look what happened now, we enforced the sidewalks.
Everybody's walking now.
Yeah.
They're
We need to
happy.
start doing the branches though, because I have to duck a few times.
That is the next complaint coming. A lot of branch complaints. Solved one problem, got another.
All right, so no action on that?
No.
Strategic vision, I don't have anything for this.
Meeting tomorrow.
We got, well, exactly, we're gonna
Mhm.
discuss this in deeper context tomorrow, so. All right, anybody have any new business?
I just wanted to clarify, Alderman Perkins, at the beginning, your ask on the agenda, if there's a revision, is for us to note that when we upload the packet, that we added something, because it was uploaded correctly to me, OMA, with this item on here on Thursday afternoon.
Okay, well,
The initial draft that went out probably Tuesday, I
Yeah.
think, did not have that item on.
and then Thursday morning, an email that was sent from Jeanette did not have this either.
Okay,
The 8
so
AM,
did
what she said was the agenda set. I know it could have been till like, what, 5 or 6 PM, it could have
Right.
made it by the time 48 hours. But it should be kind of sent out so people don't think, oh, if they looked at 12 o'clock, it was already in there, and then it got updated, be like, hey, It's just more for us to, so we don't have people saying, oh, you guys are violating, you add something after the 48 hours. That's just my recommendation.
So you're saying she uploaded it twice?
No, she only sent us this, I only looked at it
To
to
committee?
email, yeah.
Yes, okay. So when she did the final upload, it was on there. So the
Yeah.
public would have only seen the final
Okay.
upload. So, but I'll make sure that if there's a change last
Just-
minute like that it's just noted in the email.
Yeah, you know, because sometimes I don't look at, because we usually get an email, so sometimes I don't go.
Okay.
I
Understood.
honestly didn't look at the first one. I guess I just looked at the second one, so it worked out for me.
I know, you got emailed twice.
Usually don't look at it until it's on the website, so. Yeah.
Okay. Any other
Motion to
new business?
adjourn?
Oh, okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.